Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Swire. You can also call me the promo guy. Our guest today is Jill Hunter from UpLevel to Lead. Jill is a leadership coach, and before founding her coaching company, Jill spent 25 years working as a pharmacist. When she became the director of pharmacy, she led her team with empathy, not numbers, and had gotten good results from it. We're going to talk about a lot of good things, and especially about workplace scenario today and how we can become a better leader. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Swire. Thank you for having me here.
Can you give us a quick bio and how you make the transition from a pharmacist become a leadership and training coach?
Yes, when I finished my most recent position as director of pharmacy, I looked back and said, what have I really loved about my job for the past 15 years? And it was actually developing people. So I've actually been a leadership coach as part of working for corporate America for the past 15 years, developing people, making them better, teaching them how to manage other people, and developing leaders and leading people myself. So I decided I wanted to do that part full time. I love operations, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. And I really want to get to the people and make people a better person after I work with them.
Okay. The first topic that we're going to talk about is micromanaging at a workplace. I would like to confess on there that I've done it before. Especially I speak for myself. As a small business owner and then leaders of a certain project, I view them as my baby. Right? It's hard for us to delegate whenever that we need to other people who can help us. And I wanted to check in, and I'm passionate about the project. So you could say, sometimes I breathe down on people's neck, and then, sorry, I have to admit it, moving forward. But why would people become micromanaging at a workplace, and how does it affect the team and how the work environment?
When you hire good people and then micromanage them, they are kind of confused. It's like, okay, we hired me to do a job, and now you're telling me how to do the job. And I have experience doing this often. Sometimes they don't, and a lot of times they do. You hired them because they have certain characteristics and experience, and they get really confused when you start jumping in and telling them exactly what to do and when to do it. They figure that they know how to do their work better than you because they're actually doing it, even though you may have done it for the past 5 years, is often the case for an entrepreneur or other people in business that have come up through the ranks. But one thing you need to keep in mind is, in order to keep them engaged, they need to feel like they're valued. And when you micromanage someone, you are diminishing their value and not making them feel like they're contributing anything worthwhile. So why do they want to keep showing up with new ideas and coming to work with a smile on their face every day? Because they're just going to be told what to do. And if you keep beating them down by micromanaging them over time, they're going to stop losing initiative and wanting to take on new tasks. So that's one thing. If you have a person who's not initiating new tasks or doing things without being told, it could be that you're a micromanager and didn't realize you're a micromanager.
Yeah. So how would you suggest, if you are or suspecting you are micromanaging people, what would be a good example, to check in, finding out where they are along the process?
So a way to check in is, okay, here's a task I've assigned to you. And then sit there and discuss with them, okay, so how do you want to approach this? And you as a manager, shut up. Let them speak. Give them the floor and ask them how they're going to attack the problem. And it may not be the same way that you're going to attack it or would want to, but as long as it's going to work, then let them do it. And say, okay, that sounds great. And so then you're kind of letting them move forward. You're still getting that check-in where you know what they're going to do. And then before the conversation ends and you finish this little powwow, which could be 5 minutes, it could be a half hour, then you say, how can I help you do this? At which point they're going to look at you like, what? What do you mean? How can I help you? And that's what a good leader does, is they make sure that their person's on the right path, and then they help support them get along that path and keep moving forward. And when you start showing support that way, then you can step back as far as being a micromanager, and you can really help people learn how to work on their own in the way that you want them to work.
Yeah, I like that, and also changing a workplace, with support. And I think you said it very correctly. We might have the same goal, but then we might come from different personality or school of thoughts. We might do things differently, but then ultimately we also want to achieve the same goal. So by letting them, have it their way and to support them, you as a leader might learn something new also.
Yes, you don't, as a leader, you care about the end results and not necessarily how they get there. As long as they're not doing something illegal or immoral, is what I've always said. As long as they're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter how they get there. And just go ahead and support them, and they're going to learn along the way. And sometimes if they have to repeat this task, like say it's a monthly task, by the third month, I guarantee you that half of your people will be doing it better than you were, because they're going to continuously improve the process, whereas you are looking at it from where you left off, and they're going to keep going forward. So you're going to end up with a better product in the end.
Yeah, and I think that's how a company can grow. Sometimes we hear a story that companies are able to grow 10 times or sometimes 100 times throughout the year. Obviously, the owner or the CEO will be the best person to do the job, but then without letting others to help you to achieve a goal, you can only do so much. You can only maybe do a few tasks at the same time, but then you can really tackle the growth that you're hoping to get by doing it all yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Another talking point I think that you mentioned it's very timely. It's how to communicate openly and honestly, especially with the workplace that we are in right now. Some businesses are struggling, and some people are actually growing. So, and I think leaders sometimes don't want to communicate with their team is because they feel are they showing their vulnerable side, or are they not become the authorized figure? Sometimes really the leader right now don't know the answer to that. But how would you suggest a leader to communicate with the team openly and honestly?
One thing I did as a leader is I always told people what I knew, what I didn't know, and what I couldn't say. Because if you're not the top person in the organization, you may have information that you cannot share with your team. And that's okay. Tell your team, I know that, but I am not allowed to share that with you right now. All I can say is sometimes you can give them a little hint and say, don't be worried, because right now a lot of people are worried. So if there's any way that you can get them to be a little more certain that they're going to have a job next week, that they're going to have a paycheck coming in for the next month, that's what people are really concerned about right now. But it's telling them transparently what's going on. And if you have a disagreement with your boss or superiors about something, chances are they already know about that. They already know. So it's okay to say, listen, I'm being told we have to move forward this way. This is not my decision. I wanted to do it a different way. And I'm being told right now, because of the circumstances, the finances, whatever, that we can't do it the way that I wanted to. So we're going to do it this way, and we're going to make the best of it. So we're in this together, and you kind of pull the team together, because once they realize that sometimes the things that you have to do are not coming from you and they're coming from above, they understand politics. They understand that sometimes that's the way it is. And if you have a good relationship with your people, they'll back you and support you, because they know you've got to do it. And they're like, okay, if this is what we got to do, this is what we got to do. Let's get through this together.
Yeah, because I think sometimes it's hard, to stay with the role that you have to do. But then obviously, if you're in the middle, then you get pressure from above and under. So it's kind of hard. There are things that you can share, there are things that you cannot share, like you said, at the same time. So communication skills is important. If you are keeping people in the dark too much, they lose focus, they're confused, right? Especially right now, there are so many things changing every day. And then I think you said at this point perfectly, lead with empathy. Can you tell us the concept and how we can use it, in a workplace?
Absolutely. So in the workplace, you want to make sure that you support people and let them be a human first and an employee second. So I want to share an example of something when I was a director. Um, one day, one of my employees came in to me after our morning huddle. He said, Jill, I really, I have to let you know, I might need to step out, for like a 15-minute call mid-morning. And I said, no problem. I said, what's up? Because he looked a little uptight. And he said, well, my house got broken into last night. My daughter's living at home, and I need to call the police to go over everything that was stolen. And I'm thinking, he lives in a not great part of the Boston suburbs, and his daughter's home alone. He's at work. And I just said to him, I said, what are you doing here? Go home, make sure your house is safe, talk to the police, get this handled, and come back to work when you're ready, like tomorrow or the next day. I said, just let me know when you'll be in next. And I sent him home, and he came in the next day, and about a week later, he came to me and he said, Jill, he says, I can't tell you what it felt like to be supported when my home was falling apart. And that means so much to me. He says, I am forever grateful to you, and I'll do whatever I can to help you from forevermore. And that's using empathy, making him feel supported at work, even though his life was falling apart. I'm like, I've got it covered here. Don't worry about work. I'll figure something out. That's using empathy at work.
Yeah, I think, we all have examples like that. There's sometimes easy things that we can do in our ability to help others. And then, sometimes we're caught in the moment. We became focused too much on the goal, and then we neglect, the human factor, because employees and then as people working on a team, they want to belong to the team. That's why sometimes you hear a story that, they spend years working on a project because they are part of a team working on something bigger. And sometimes they will take less money, right? Sounds crazy, to work on something that they believe in. They want to be on a team. But then to be in a team, you got to understand each other. Think about a sports analogy. If all the players on the team don't like each other, it won't be a good team. A good team is we complement each other. And then when other needs help, we step in and help them. So together we become better. That's the perfect example that you just gave, Jill. And it's a great example.
Okay.
So also, I know that you also mentioned a good point too. You have listened to that colleague of yours, by having that example. You saw something that was not right at that time, and then you had that follow-up question, which led to other things that you're able to help them. So how would you suggest you can listen to your team? Is it do you have to spend more time with them? And then once you know the feedback, how can you act on it afterwards?
So no one wants to work for a boss that doesn't take the employees' decisions into their decision-making process or their opinions. People want to be heard. And it's important that you give your people a time and a place to be heard. And I suggest, if not daily, at least once a week, you let employees talk to you about what's going on. And you want to know what's going on, because if they aren't complaining about something, then something's really wrong. Silence is sometimes more deafening than the little chirping in the background, the little problems. and you have to get worried when your whole team stops talking and stops complaining. There's usually a bigger problem, unless you just made a major change and solved a problem. But when they bring up something, don't dismiss it. Acknowledge it and say, oh, okay, either yes, we can change that or handle that, or that's on the plan for 3 months from now, or that's something that I hadn't thought of. Can I, run it by a couple people and get back to you? And then do get back to the person. So don't just let them vent and dump things on you and make it sound like you're not going to do anything, because I do want you to follow up. Employees need to know that you're going to follow through and make changes. And when they see that you've made changes, even if they're really small, my team needed calculators to be able to perform basic math every day. And so I bought more calculators and brought them in. And the next day they were like, this is just so much easier instead of having to share calculators around. And it was the simple things, like I didn't know that they were all trying to do math at the same time. So we thought that 2 or 3 calculators for the teams would work, and it didn't. Just little things like that can make such a big difference in their day-to-day work.
I think why some companies don't do that is, like you said, they don't want it to turn into a complaint sessions. So obviously, there are something that, the employees thought they would see it differently. And then they complain, they vent, or they make suggestion that management might not be able to do it at the moment. So how would you suggest, both sides to communicate better, for something that, don't turn into a complaint sessions?
You can sometimes limit, if you're doing it in a big forum, you got 20 people in the group, you can limit each person to 1 question. And then you only have 20 questions to handle. So they have to pick their most important. Sometimes that works. And then as far as being open and honest about the answers, is when you're honest with the answers and they see changes made, then they're less likely to complain and bitch and moan and do things that, are just, they want to be heard and they don't really care. They just want to make noise, if you will. So sometimes just showing that you are making, even if there's 20 things brought up and only 3 get yeses and move forward, then the group sees that 3 out of 20 things made it through this week, and they can try again next week. And you could make rules like you can't bring up the same question for 4 weeks, so that you don't have to deal with it week after week, the same thing, and keep saying no, to try and be a positive environment, because you want to show that you can move the needle on something. As a leader, you need to be able to create change, or your people aren't going to believe in you anymore. So you really do need to find something, some common ground where you can move forward and say yes.
I think one of the suggestion that it's interesting is, if you hear employees complaining or concerned about something, instead of shutting them out or say we'll get back to you, ask them, if it was up to you, how would you like to solve that problem? So you might get more insights. You might want to hear, or you might not want to hear, but then that that's how they really want to feel, that how they really want to change things. As a leader, if there's something in your ability can change, I would strongly suggest that you do it. It might be something really small that you could just change, or maybe they want better food selection at the vending machine, or maybe the time clock, they wish that it's going to be easier to do instead of waiting for 10 minutes to get clocked in. So I think asking them back the question, how they would suggest it, might be another way that you can consider, instead of just shutting them out. And sometimes, manager will end the topic because it gets so heated.
Absolutely. And sometimes, usually managers have some type of either petty cash or budget that discretional budget. Sometimes say, okay, well, here's $100. See what you can do as a team. You decide how you want to spend it. Do you want to spend it on a lunch treat or snacks or something like that? Or do you want to buy things for the office and let them go ahead and spend the money? And sometimes that makes them feel more involved in what's going on. And sometimes you can give them $1,000 budget. It depends on the situation and what problem you're trying to solve, but really letting them dig in and find possible solutions for you. That really helps them feel heard.
Let me ask you a big question and try to tie in everything that we just talked about. So right now, a lot of company they have people working remotely, working virtually. So how would you suggest a leader not to micromanaging people working from home? Because obviously they might have the spouse or kids learning from home, screaming around. They don't have a good connection. And then how would the leader give them support? How would they communicate? And how would they lead with empathy and listen to the team in a virtual environment?
So I know this isn't possible for a lot of jobs, but there's a lot of jobs that are not time dependent. Like there is no reason that certain jobs need to be on a screen from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Be flexible when you can, and it doesn't matter. Be task oriented and tell your people, okay, I need these three things done this week. We need something done by Thursday, and these other two for Friday, and then let them do it. And if they want to work, pull an all-nighter Wednesday night into Thursday, and work overnight because their kids are on training in the morning and they have school and they need to juggle how much bandwidth they have and stuff like that in the house, literally and figuratively. I guess there's two different types of bandwidth we're dealing with right now. And let them do what they need to do. Don't insist that I'm paying you for 40 hours worth of work, that you sit there and stare at a screen and not be productive. We know that when they were in the office, that they were sometimes at the water cooler. They were sometimes, chatting with somebody else in their cube about something, or doing shopping online. IMing people, they weren't productive for 40 hours a week, even though they were in the office. Now that they're at home, try and shift to a task or production, like they've done a certain number of things type of focus instead of how many hours they're logging. They will be much more productive. And if you can, let them fit it in throughout the day whenever they want. If you're going to have meetings, then pick a certain time of the day where you're always going to have your meetings, and the rest of the day let the people do what they want. And I would ask them, how else can I help you? And let them come up with things. And a lot of them want that flexibility. Because if you give a parent who's trying to homeschool their kids flexibility to fit their work in anytime they can over the course of a week, they'll do it. They will make it happen because they have such a they need that paycheck. They need to take care of those kids. But they're also the nanny, the cook, they're trying to do everything. And that's how you can have empathy right now, is give people the freedom to make the right decisions, because they will. Nobody's saying I don't want to work. And when they have a week when they struggle to get the 40 hours in, they feel guilty. But if they have a week where they only need to complete these 3 tasks, they can do that and they'll make it happen. And it might
I
take
love that
45
answer.
hours.
Yeah, if it is, obviously it depends on the business. If you have certain tasks, it doesn't mean that you have to do it in 9 to 5. That, with what a lot of people are juggling right now, like you said, kids are pulling Zoom. If internet cuts out, you start hearing, kids yelling, right? And then you might not be able to be very productive like how you were in the office. So, but then once the kids are, watching their video or they went to sleep, then you could put in some good work. You can be focused in 1 hour, then you can do 4 hours, during the day. So as long as you're able to achieve the task, then I think right now as a leader, then you let them be. If they're able to give you what the end goal will be, give them a lot of flexibility, because a lot of us are juggling a lot of different things, and some of them are really challenging right now.
Yeah. And I think this is the way it's going to be for the future. And so don't just think of this as a short-term solution, is really shift your thinking long-term in that forevermore, manage your people with these are the things I need you to do, and you figure out how to do them and when to do them. And I'm just going to help you manage the deadlines. And I might check in on a longer project to make sure that you're not falling too far behind. And use the question, how can I help you, on a regular basis? And your people will feel supported.
Yeah, I think in that way, how can I support you? You become like kind of like a mentor or a coach instead of what they think of you as a manager. They will think manager will breathe down their neck, but then we like to reach out to our mentor or a coach whenever we have a problem. So you are still achieving the same goal, but then for example, if all the team will can get your knowledge, then you'll be a better team and a better leader than you just manage it and you still try to do it all yourself. So sometimes I think it's just the letting go and the how to delegate. It's the most tricky part for a leader.
And leaders need to know that managing people is a small part of what they do, maybe 20% of what they do. They should be figuring out the direction that you're going to go and really working with either customers or upper management to try and figure out where the department's going to go and looking forward. And we don't do enough of that. We spend all of our time troubleshooting, solving problems, putting out fires because we just look down and we just try and manage the people below us. And that's not what good leaders do. Is good leaders are forward thinkers. They're looking about where you're going and trying to get people to come along on that mission with them to the next frontier.
Yeah, that is exactly how separate a manager to a leader. A leader will lead, a manager will manage.
Yeah.
Hey, Jill, thank you so much for the information today. If the listener and viewer wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way?
So I'm here on LinkedIn at Jill-C-Hunter. And I'd love for you to join my Facebook group if you're on Facebook, and that's Lead with Empathy. And that way we can have more discussions like this and conversations back and forth about problems you're having at work. You can share it there and get advice from like-minded people. And if anyone wanted to book a call with me, I will do a free 1-hour coaching call. And you can reach me at the bit.ly link, Zoom Jill. And so I'd love to spend an hour just coaching you. It's not a sales call. There will be no discussion about hiring me. If you want to do something like that, it would be a second call. But I just want to coach people and help you.
Thank you so much, Jill. I'll include all the link in the show notes so people can get in touch with you. And thank you again for coming on to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.